I honestly would play Spider-Man until, like, I can't walk anymore. I love this character so much, and it was, like, my childhood dream to play this character. You know, I'm loving it. I'm really enjoying it. I'm really loving what we can do with this movie and the people that we can kind of touch and the amazing things we're able to do with the platform that this movie gives us. So I'm just really enjoying it.
What is good, YouTube? Warstu here with a follow-up video from the Spider-Man is out of the MCU. Now guys, can we please stop telling lies? It's not Sony's fault. It is Disney's fault, you know? So let's have a situation here. So let's say that you win £1,000 and you agree to give your friend 5%, and then all of a sudden your friend goes, no, I want 50%. And that's essentially where we are here. So I'm seeing a lot of misleading articles saying that Sony has kicked Spider-Man out of the MCU, but that is not the case. This is down to Disney. But guys, this is all subject to change. So it's interesting how everyone is on the hate train. We have, I'm not going to say names, guys, but we have other websites stating that they're going to have nothing to do with Spider-Man if he isn't in the MCU. Imagine that. You're a fan of Spider-Man and you don't want anything to do with him because he's not part of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Just sit on that for a minute. So this isn't really a bad idea, but it's not really a good idea because it's going to create a lot of loopholes, a lot of plot holes. But one thing for sure is John Watts and obviously Tom Holland have 2 movies left on the contract. So Tom Holland will be playing Spider-Man at least 2 more times. You would have seen in the short clip that I played before the video started, a clip of Tom Holland saying he wants to play Spider-Man until he can't walk. He said it is his childhood dream to become Spider-Man. So it's not going to bother him that it's not in the MCU or it's going to be in the Sonyverse. So like always, let's break this down, guys. A bit in depth, a very different kind of video, conversational, not scripted. Well, I don't script any videos. So let's get into it. But I don't want you guys to blame Sony because it is not Sony's fault. So let's break down exactly what happened. So Deadline reported that the MCU Spider-Man is out of the MCU, but to be honest, guys, they jumped the gun because they posted this article whilst negotiations are still ongoing. And they're not really ongoing now. It's just Sony said they would be willing to work with Marvel again if they didn't want to take 50% of the profits for a property they don't even own. Yes, the MCU, yes, Mr. Kevin Feige, yes, they did do all the work. Granted, they filmed it, they produced it, but you got to think they're doing that at Sony's expense. Sony paid for the marketing budget. Sony paid to make the movie, they paid all the actors, and you got to think, just because Spider-Man Far From Home made 1.1 billion doesn't mean they make 1.1 billion. We're going to give you a quick business lesson here, guys. So, the gross turnover, 1.1 billion. They're not exactly going to tell us the kind of the actual number. But out of that 1.1 billion, the cinema takes a massive cut of how well it did at the box office. Then you got to recuperate money from the marketing budget. Then you got to recuperate the money from production costs. So let's say $600 million turns into a profit of $500 million. Not really that much for a $1 million movie, is it? Now, I've been reading headlines saying that Sony just killed a $1 billion franchise. Well, guys, it's got one movie that made $1 billion. If you look at Venom, which realistically did quite bad until China, the Chinese market basically saved it, and then it grossed 800 million. So to say it's just killed a $1 billion market, it's a bit far-fetched because they've had one movie that has surpassed 1 billion. Now, I can see where MCU fanboys are coming from saying, yes, but Kevin Feige built everything up. Yes, Kevin Feige was involved, but it's not like he wrote the script, he directed it, he produced it. It's not like he was on set for the whole 3 to 4 months whilst they were filming it. So, there's been no official word from Disney yet, but let's be honest, guys, this is coming down to greed. I'm pretty sure that Sony would be willing to give, say, 10, 20% of the profit away, except for the 5% that they've already got. So what should have happened is they should have tried to renegotiate for a new Spider-Man deal post-Spider-Man 3, because at the moment, Spider-Man 3 is going to be made via Sony only. But that ain't a bad thing, but it's not a good thing. So let's go over the actual tweets. Much of today's news about Spider-Man has a mischaracterization. Recent discussions about Kevin Feige's involvement in the franchise. We are disappointed but respect Disney's decision not to have him continue as the lead producer of our next live-action film, Spider-Man. We hope this might change in the future, but understand that there are many new responsibilities that Disney have been given, including as their newly added properties. Do not allow time for him to work on IP they do not own. And then the finishing tweet is this one here. Kevin is terrific and we are grateful for his help and guidance and appreciation of the path he has helped put us on, which we will continue. So they're not saying that it's completely over. They said we hope their plans might change in the future, but you got to understand that Marvel now has the X-Men, the Fantastic Four, all the characters that come with that. They might not even have priority of Spider-Man. Now, I'm pretty sure this is agreed. That's why the title would say something about greed, because it is greed, wanting 50% of a property. They want 50-50 financial split for a property that they don't even own. But this is not the narrative that the MCU fanboys are spitting. And a lot of you guys say I'm an MCU fanboy, but guys, realistically, like in my opinion, I'm not. This will prove it. Sony publicly responds to the Marvel divorce. Now, it is interesting to me because there's so many articles saying Disney is the greater being here and Sony has screwed the MCU fans over. No, guys, Disney has actually screwed you over because all they had to do is not demand so much. It's incredible. It's like, yeah, they make the film, but they don't finance it. So why should they get 50% of the money for a movie they're not putting money in the bucket for? It is very interesting how Disney's greed is going to cost them the Marvel Cinematic Universe Spider-Man. Now let's get into some minor issues. Now, the problem is, if Spider-Man 3 happens with no involvement from the MCU, you're going to have to skip the last 5 years of Marvel Cinematic Universe history. So essentially, Spider-Man will not be able to bring up the blip, will not be able to bring up the actual snap, he will not be able to talk about Tony Stark at all, and you're literally going to have to retcon Tom Holland's version of Spider-Man. So you get Spider-Man 3, but it's going to have no correlation to the MCU, so it will be like a new version of Spider-Man. Now, I hope that Spider-Man 3 could still be worked in with the MCU, because I believe that would be the better story. But you got to look at it on the other scale of the side. Why? Because now we can have Venom, Tom Hardy Venom, fight Tom Holland, Spider-Man, as we know Venom is anti-hero. That would hit 1 billion. Two Toms, very popular. Tom Hardy's fan base is crazy big, but that would never happen in the MCU. So there are so many potential properties now that Sony has. You know, we have Gwen Stacy, Spider-Woman, Miles Morales, and all this stuff. And not only that, we could have characters like Kraven the Hunter, Morbius, the Sinister Six. Now, if you remember a while back, we all said that Sinister Six was supposed to be teased in Spider-Man 3 at the end of Spider-Man Far From Home. Now, this makes sense. Why they pulled that scene. They obviously pulled the scene because they couldn't come to terms and conditions going forward. Now, obviously, the Sinister Six would be a build-up for the next 5 years. So in order to play the Sinister Six scene in Spider-Man Far From Home, they'd have to have a 5-year plan, and they'd have to have a new deal where they would get more creative direction and be able to use a lot more characters. Now, from what we have been personally told is that Sony did offer them access to other characters, but Disney essentially were not interested in anything. Now, to be honest, guys, it is ridiculous that everyone is putting the blame on Sony. It'd be like an extra tax, so to speak, saying like, I know, you made us $1 billion, but we're going to take half of it off you just for fun. I mean, the fact that they get merchandise sales. Now, I don't know if you know, on any platform, whether it be YouTube or merchandise, the kids' channels on YouTube get the biggest views. Ryan's Toys on YouTube gets the biggest views, because it's a child market. Now, Spider-Man merchandise sales are mad, right? Marvel makes all the money from the Spider-Man toy sales. That is incredibly high. It is ridiculous the amount of money that Disney already make. 5% of 1.1 billion, yeah, granted it's not much in the grand scheme of things, but I just wanted to put this video out there because there is a lot of misrepresentation saying that Sony has killed a $1 billion market when realistically Sony, they're just defending themselves. If it was the other way round, then I'm pretty sure 99% of you guys would not give up 50% of your company, 50% of the revenue just because of this case. Now, fans should be boycotting Disney. No, I'm only joking. So there's a hate train. Apparently people are going to boycott anything Spider-Man related in the kind of, I guess you say, Sonyverse. But we don't even know if that's going to be the case because everything is not lost. We still could get a new deal. Now, personally, I think this is going to be a PR stunt, and in a few weeks, it will come out, there's a new deal, and all this kind of stuff will be blown over. But it is very interesting that everyone has a hate train towards Sony, even though all they did is literally stick up for themselves. They're not going to hand over 50% of the money for a property that they 100% own in a movie, right? I wouldn't give up 50%. It's ridiculous that people are hating on Sony for no reason. I mean, Venom 2 will be cool. Now, if Tom Holland is going to be in the Sonyverse, maybe they can tease, you know, Spider-Man in the Venom second movie. Maybe we could get the cheeky cameo role. But you got to see it from the other standpoint of view. It's going to be no Deadpool Spider-Man. Spider-Man can't interact with the Avengers. There's no Thor, Captain America, none of that stuff. Spider-Man cannot interact with any Avenger ever, if this is the case. So, who would you prefer? Sonyverse or MCU? I personally would prefer Spider-Man inside the MCU. But if Spider-Man does stay in the Sonyverse and there's no more MCU interaction, I will still support the property because I'm a Spider-Man fan. I'm not an MCU fan. I'm a fan of the MCU and the movies they make, but I'm a fan of the characters more than the company. So you got to look at it both ways. I think personally, guys, if you're going to boycott a movie because Spider-Man's gone back to Sonyverse temporarily at the moment, we don't know, finalized. And what is interesting is Disney has not fired back. So we don't even know if what the information coming out from Sony is even true, because you can't take one side over the other until you hear what the other side has to say. Marvel Studios is very busy with their Phase 4, Phase 5, Phase 6 plans. And that's before you even start talking about, you know, the Fantastic Four and all that kind of stuff. So it's very, very interesting to see what you guys think. So just don't blame Sony. Personally, I think Disney are being a bit greedy. Maybe they should have asked for 25%. That would have been fair because they do a lot of work for Spider-Man. But asking for 50% is just too much money and it's too greedy. So like always, guys, please like, subscribe and comment and let me know down below. Which side are you on? You shouldn't really be on a side. Will you still support Tom Holland Spider-Man because he's got 2 movies left in his contract? Not 1, because that was the MCU deal. So it seems like Tom Holland had another Sony Spider-Man deal anyway, because he's got 2 movies left on his deal. So like always, guys, let me know what you think down below, and I will catch you in another video very soon. Catch ya later.